Rooted in resilience, resisting erasure, in collaboration with 8 Indigenous curators, the Penn Museum's new Native North America Gallery opens Saturday, November 22nd, and everyone's invited. Explore powerful stories of self-determination by Indigenous peoples, despite attempts to erase their identities, cultures, and languages. Join us for all-day festivities with performances, activities for all ages, and interactive galleries. Tickets at penn.museum. Artificial intelligence. It's been integrated into many parts of our city government here in Philly, from issuing parking tickets to flying police drones. Everyone's talking about it, and so is City Council. But how is our local government using AI to solve our city's most important problems? And is that causing other issues? It's Monday, November 10th. I'm Trinae Nuri, and we're talking about AI. Mirindi, welcome back to the show. You're an investigative reporter for Billy Penn, and you've been looking into how the city is using artificial intelligence. It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. It's a hot button issue right now. I want to talk about this city council hearing on AI, artificial intelligence, that was held over at PhillyCam last month. But before we get into that, let's just break down how the city is using AI in our everyday lives.
Yeah, some city officials who were at this hearing kind of laid out some of the ways that the city has used AI for a long time. And these are pretty standard things that we didn't used to even think about as AI, as artificial intelligence. It's just kind of different kinds of software and tech systems. So, for example, checking email for cybersecurity threats, routing 311 call requests or requests that comes through the city's 311 app, looking through computer security logs, spotting fraud, forecasting demand for services. If they're getting a lot of calls for something, they can see, is there something happening out in the city that we need to anticipate and get our workers on. So all that has been around for a long time.
It seems standard too now. Like that doesn't seem like a problem.
No. It used to be called machine learning. No one called it AI. And in fact, a lot of this discussion, I think, is kind of hinges on what is AI and what do you call AI and when does it become a problem. But then there are also other things that have been around for a while, like license plate readers. The police have used those for a number of years. And it's just a machine that can read numbers and letters. So that's some of the basic stuff. And then, of course, there was a lot of interest from activists and from city council members on how do we use this in law enforcement. And it was kind of interesting. The city's chief information officer, Melissa Scott, at first she was like, you know what? I don't think we use AI in law enforcement. Even our license plate readers aren't AI. She was like, I was involved in setting up the license plate readers and those aren't AI. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? So so I contacted the police department and they sent me a whole list of things that they use. For example, so there's license plate readers, which the police use. I mean, the police department uses things like transcription systems and stuff like that, which is pretty standard. But then they use facial recognition, which is a really hot one. They don't do it routinely, but they are connected to some kind of regional law enforcement system where they can send specific requests, like, we have a picture of someone, we don't know who it is, tell us who it is. And they have to get special authorization and so forth. They are flying drones. The police department has made much of the fact that they're starting to use drones in Kensington and other places. And sometimes the drone flies itself. That's AI. There are body-worn cameras that have a transcription feature. And the police are very careful to say, we don't use that to write reports or automatically pick people out for arrest or anything like that. But there is transcription. And they're looking at other things, for example, like whether you can whether they can use an anti-drone system that would be used by AI and some other things.
Now, Mayor, that list seems, I don't know, it doesn't seem like totally surprising, but I think a lot of people now are talking about just increased immigration enforcement, for example, right? And how AI is or may not be used with ICE. And like you just mentioned, that facial recognition software is a thing. Should Philadelphians be worried about that?
So there has been news from some other states and from other parts of the country. ICE does use AI technologies. I'm not sure exactly what. It might be facial recognition. It might be finding people through kind of information analysis, database analysis. And in some states, law enforcement has cooperated, state or local law enforcement has cooperated with ICE in using those systems. As far as I know, in Pennsylvania, that isn't happening, but that's obviously a great concern to people who are undocumented or who are immigrants with other kinds of status, or to the advocates and lawyers who work with them. For now, it doesn't appear to seem like there's a real issue with that in Philadelphia. And in fact, when the police department sent me their list of AI uses, I asked them about ICE, and the police department said it doesn't collaborate with ICE or Homeland Security or any federal agency on AI initiatives related to immigration enforcement.
I do want to bring up how the city is involved with maybe giving out tickets. So, our colleague Matt, he was talking to us about how he recently got a parking ticket on South Street for blocking a bus lane. There was no PPA officer, it was all from AI powered cameras on a bus. And he said, listen, I was just trying to pick up my friend's son to go to baseball practice. I just simply pulled over in front of the house, and then he got the ticket in the mail. Now, he says that maybe if the situation was different and there was a PPA officer, like a human, they probably would have let him go. So, Mayor, like, can you help explain how the city is using AI for traffic and parking tickets?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I forgot to mention that whole area when we were talking about how the city uses AI. There's this whole other area, which is these cameras and traffic and parking related things, which is probably one of the biggest ways they use AI, or stuff that people call AI now. So, Rue Landau, the council member at this hearing, she was talking about how they use AI systems to look for potholes and road obstructions. The parking
Interesting.
authority uses AI to issue tickets in various ways. For example, there are red light cameras in certain places.
Like on
There's
Broad Street and Roosevelt Boulevard.
so the speed cameras are what's on Broad Street and Roosevelt Boulevard. They recently, just a couple months ago, they turned on a bunch of new speed cameras all along Broad Street. And then I think what Matt got in trouble with are these cameras that are mounted on SEPTA buses. And as the buses drive down the street, the AI system can detect, like, oh, here's a bus stop where you're not allowed to park. Here's a special bus lane where you're not allowed to park, and and it can be like, oh, this car's in the wrong place. Let's grab that license plate and let's send them out a ticket. Now they do say that people are involved with all these cameras, so the system generates a report, and then an actual PPA person looks at it and be like, yep, this looks like, oh, is that Matt Katz's car blocking the blocking the spot for the
Give him a ticket.
bus passengers? And then they send out a ticket. So yeah, that's like the cutting edge in Philly for AI, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like there's no wiggle room either. You have to possibly fight the ticket if you don't want to pay that price. Mayor, I want to ask you though, I want to shift things a little bit. Are there any guidelines from our state lawmakers or maybe even federal lawmakers that are making decisions around the use of AI in government?
I'm not sure there are any state laws yet that specifically mention artificial intelligence. Um, uh, but there's a lot of interest in that, and I think there are some proposals. The big concern, obviously, is civil rights and discrimination. And there was something that came up either earlier this year or last year with a company that provides a service to help landlords set rents, and it basically was going to help them maximize the amount they could charge people.
Oh boy.
And there was some concerns that this was discriminatory, that it was being used in poorer neighborhoods, targeting certain demographic groups, essentially. And some council members complained about that. And I think that that is not happening now in Philly. So there are some efforts here and there. I mean, a big part of what the city officials who spoke at this hearing were saying is that they're getting together an AI governance committee that's going to involve various experts from within the city and outside the city that will set policy and sort of create a process for continual review of how AI is used. For now, all this stuff is subject to the usual laws about needing search warrants to get certain information and so forth, as far as I understand.
All right, we've got more on this AI conversation after the break. Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret. It's the only place in the city where you can work out, and socialize all under one roof. Right in the heart of Philly, across from 30th Street Station, Filler Club is a private membership club built for modern city life. With multiple co-working spaces, more than 50 businesses on site, and a state-of-the-art fitness center featuring 2 full floors, personal training, an indoor pool, golf simulators, and even a cold plunge. You'll find everything you need to thrive. Visit fillerclub.com to learn more and apply to become a member. Discover why Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret for work, wellness, and connection.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Sayasa High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Mayor, do we know enough information yet just about the implications of this new technology? It seems like this tech is moving pretty quickly, like there's new systems coming online. What do we know about that?
I mean, AI, again, is a kind of a blanket term for a whole range of software and hardware systems that do a whole bunch of different things. I think personally that the term is almost not very useful because it covers so much. But it is a new set of tools that operate faster, that automate things that people would have done before, that are smarter at scanning faces, at scanning words, at doing all kinds of things. And so the concerns are really where it's arguably abused or it's done in a very aggressive way. There was a an attorney at the council hearing, a civil rights attorney named Clarence Oko, who works on these issues. And he pointed to this situation in Florida a few years ago where the sheriff's office in a certain uh, part of the state was using I guess what you could call an AI system. They were pulling together data from criminal records, schools records of student performance and disciplinary records. And they're pulling together all this stuff and predicting or creating a list of young people who they thought uh, were going to commit crimes in the future or were likely to, which is weird. It's like this predictive policing thing.
Seems scary.
It's like Minority Report. Council member Jim Harity at the council hearing, rather, was like, I don't want to have a Minority Report situation where we're like invading people's privacy to predict who will supposedly commit crimes in the future and then targeting them. But this is kind of what was happening in Florida, where they were pulling all this information together, and then the police were allegedly basically harassing these people, like going and giving them tickets for not cutting their lawn and just coming up with any pretext to go after them and maybe even try to scare them into moving out of this county where the sheriff operates. So that's kind of that program ended in that place. But that's the kind of worst case scenario that civil rights advocates and others are saying is very technically feasible and has been attempted here and there.
It sounds like also from what you're saying is that this technology can prejudge someone without knowing any nuances of a person or a person's situation, which seems from like what you were writing, what Council Member Rue Landau kind of argued during this hearing. It's like an open book. There's lots of concerns. And it seems also that maybe City Council, at least here in Philly, may not know enough about it?
Well, it's definitely one of those things where there's a new set of technologies, law enforcement and other organizations, other agencies are going to be like, oh, here's this tool. How can we use it to achieve our aims? And there's a potential for abuse, as with any software, any technological system. And city council, they're not IT experts. They're not in law enforcement. And so they're like, what's going on? Do we have systems for tracking how we're using these systems? What's the kind of superstructure of management and monitoring for the correct use of this stuff? So yeah, there was definitely a sense that they were learning. In fact, they had this other expert, someone who had worked for the Biden administration, setting AI policy and is now a professor in the area. And she tried to lay out some really basic principles, really, really basic principles, like this is what you have to watch out for. And these are the ways to think about what AI is doing. So there is a level of like basic fundamental education about what the issues are here that I think this hearing was part of the purpose of this hearing.
Was there anyone in council who is pushing for more continued and maybe even more use of AI, especially in Philly government?
That didn't come up at the hearing. I mean, I think that if you'd asked council members, what do you think about using these cameras to catch people parking illegally? Probably a lot of them would be like, yeah, sounds good. The speed cameras, for example, have a lot of support because Philly has this really serious problem with people dying in car crashes. And so people are generally behind putting those kinds of technologies in place. There wasn't anybody at the hearing who was like, yes, more technology, more AI.
Okay.
Though this hearing was definitely more about learning what it is, how it's used, how do we prevent it from being misused.
And Mayor, you said the follow-up is that there's going to be an artificial intelligence governance committee. When will they roll that out? And what are they going to actually focus on?
That's supposed to happen later this year, or more likely early next year. Part of what they're focusing on with that is who's going to be on the committee. A number of council members asked, will the community be involved? And this is something that some of the experts who testified talked about. They said, you really need to have actual residents on these committees or involved in the process, because these tools are powerful and the community shouldn't be subjected to them. The community should be part of determining how they're used. And so Kristen Bray, who's the chief legal counsel to Mayor Sherelle Parker, who testified, she said they're looking into, if they can have community members on it, if they can have people from other cities that are using some of these technologies on this committee, as well as locals and elected officials and so on. And they said this committee would be like sort of an ongoing process of reviewing the city's policies on use of AI, tracking the technologies that are out there, working with experts, and making sure, as she put it, that the use of AI remains aligned with our values, our legal obligations, and the expectations of our residents and employees. So it's a little bit open-ended now. We'll have to see what this committee actually does. But it seems like it would take on a kind of broad portfolio of related to AI.
I mean, if they're using it to fix potholes, I'm saying, yay. I wonder, is anyone talking about the use of AI, especially for next year in 2026, when we are going to have so many visitors from around the world coming into our city?
Yeah, it's interesting that you ask that because, the police have started using drones as a sort of pilot effort to help them with things like crowd control, and if there's a crime scene to watch from above and see what's going on. And you could imagine them using drones to track suspects the way they use helicopters already. And I believe that the police department said, well, we're starting to use these drones in Kensington for drug investigations and so forth, and they could be used during 2026 in relation to World Cup security. And there's going to be a World Cup fan center set up in Fairmount Park it's going to attract thousands of people. And I think there was kind of a suggestion that maybe the drones could be used then. So the city, when I sent them some questions, they made a point of saying that they have not entered into any agreements or discussions with the Trump administration regarding AI-based anti-drone initiatives for World Cup security for next summer. So I guess there's an idea floating out there that the federal law enforcement who will be involved in working at the World Cup games, which are happening next June, July in Philadelphia, and all the other related events, that maybe the federal officials might want to use AI-powered drones. Anyways, for now, they say that's not happening, and we'll see what actually happens next year.
All right. I guess we'll continue this conversation. Mayor Indy, investigative reporter for Billy Penn, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Trinae.
You can read more of Mayor's reporting and the full story that we're talking about today by clicking the link in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about the use of AI in Philly, share this with your coworker. Also, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. You can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.